Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 8, Chapter 19, Text 40. Tadyata vriksha unmula shushyati udvartate chirat evam nashtarantah sadya atma shushyena samshayaha. When the tree is uprooted, it immediately falls down and begins to dry up. Similarly, if one doesn't take care of the body, which is supposed to be untruth, in other words, if the untruth is uprooted, the body undoubtedly becomes dry. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. In this regard, Srila Rupa Goswami says, Prapanchikataya buddhaya hari sambandhi vastunaha mumukshubi parityago vairagyam falgukate. One who rejects things without knowledge of their relationship to Krishna is incomplete in his renunciation. Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu 1-66. When the body is engaged in the service of the Lord, one should not consider the body material. Sometimes the spiritual body of the spiritual master is misunderstood. But Srila Rupa Goswami instructs, Prapanchikataya buddhaya hari sambandhi vastunaha. The body fully engaged in Krishna's service should not be neglected as material. One who does neglect it is false in his renunciation. If the body is not properly maintained, it falls down and dries up like an uprooted tree, from which fruits and flower can no longer be obtained. The Vedas therefore enjoin. The purport is that activities performed with the help of the body for the satisfaction of the absolute truth, Om Tat Sat, are never temporary, although performed by the temporary body. Indeed, such activities are everlasting. Therefore, the body should be properly cared for. Because the body is temporary, not permanent, one cannot expose the body to being devoured by a tiger or killed by an enemy. All precautions should be taken to protect the body. Repeat, all precautions should be taken to protect the body. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatari. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda. Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Thank you, Gaur Sharan Prabhu, for engaging me in service. I'd like to seek the blessings of all the senior devotees, Adi Purush Prabhu, Arjun Prabhu, and each and every one of you, so that I may speak something in line with Guru Parampara and something that may be beneficial to each and every one of you in this path towards Krishna. So, before we start, I want to explain that a little bit about Bali Maharaj and his background on why he was one of the 12 Mahajans. So Mahajans are extraordinary devotees who teach us how to practice bhakti. He was not only in the list of the 12 Mahajans, but he was also in the other illustrious list of the exemplars of the 9 limbs of bhakti. So the verse goes like this: Swayambhu Narada Shambhu Kumaro Kapila Manuhu Prallado Janako Bhishma Balir Vaya Shakir Vayam. So this verse lists the 12 Mahajans. Also, the 9 limbs of bhakti are Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Pada Sevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atma Nivedanam. And there are 9 exemplars who exemplified each of these 9 limbs of bhakti. For example, Shravanam was exemplified by Parikshit Maharaj, Kirtanam was exemplified by Sukadeva Goswami, and so on. So Bali Maharaj comes in both of these lists. There are two other people, two other devotees who fall in both of these lists. I'll just pause for a second, and if anybody can write on the chat who the other two devotees are who fall into both of these illustrious lists. Yes, thank you, Jamana Jaya. Yes, Sukadeva Goswami was one of them. And also, Prahlad Maharaj also belongs to both of these lists. So, Prahlad Maharaj, as we all know, is the grandfather of Bali Maharaj. So, now let's look at the context of this particular verse and let's give some background. So, Bali Maharaj's life is a life of transformation. So, Bali Maharaj was introduced in the Bhagavatam in the 6th chapter of the 8th canto as a typical demon. And now we are in the 19th chapter where he's almost on the verge of becoming a Mahajan. So, what happened and what led to this life of transformation? So before I explain that, we'll just look at some background. So, after the churning of the milk ocean, there was a huge battle between the demigods and the demons, as we know. And the demons were completely destroyed, and Indra's thunderbolt almost killed Bali Maharaj. So, but by the arrangement of Shukracharya, he was revived. So, Shukracharya actually revived and gave almost like a life to Bali Maharaj. And Bali Maharaj continued serving Shukracharya faithfully from that point on. So, it is said in the Vedic culture that even demons also believed in the truth of the Vedas. They believed in the power of sacrifices, yagyas, and they also believed in giving charity. So, under Sukracharya's guidance, Bali Maharaj performed extreme yagyas, extreme sacrifices, and hence he was able to conquer the heavenly planets. He was able to conquer Indra and also the whole universe. So, in one sense, everything that Bali Maharaj had was by the grace of Shukracharya. So that is where we are right now in Bhagavatam. And it is at that point that Vamandev appears. And it is at this point that Bali Maharaj is so courageous that he actually defied and disobeyed a Brahmana like Shukracharya, who had given everything to him. And this act could have been thought as very, very dangerous. But yet, Bali Maharaj chose to do it for the sake of the Supreme Lord Vamandev. So, whenever we talk of Bali Maharaj, of course, he exemplified Atmanivedana or complete surrender. And we often think that this complete surrender could be because he's surrendered his own head, his own body, his own kingdom, his own relatives. He gave up all of those things. But more importantly, and it's actually more difficult because he gave up the dharma of following the Brahmana, such as Shukracharya, who pretty much had given his second life when he was almost dead. Shukracharya was the one who revived him. And Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains in this context that how was it possible? How was it possible for a demon like Bali Maharaj to become a Mahajan? So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that the seed of devotion was actually given by Prahlad Maharaj, but it was covered over by his infatuation with wealth. And that covering got removed when he took darshan of Vamandev. So as soon as he took darshan of Vamandev, his heart opened up, and that infatuation with wealth, which was covering him up till that point, started going away. So now the question comes, so was Bali Maharaj liberated mainly due to him being a grandson of Prahlad Maharaj? So was Bali Maharaj a Mahajan mainly because he was a grandson of Prahlad Maharaj? Of course, Narsinghadev promised Prahlad Maharaj that 21 generations will be delivered in the family of pure devotees. So this is the verse. So I wanted to explore this a little bit. So the verse is from the 7th canto, 10th chapter, 18, where the Supreme Personality of Godhead, this is Lord Nrsimhadev speaking, my dear Prahlad, O most pure, O great saintly person, your father has been purified along with 21 forefathers in your family. So the Sanskrit is Tri Saptabhi Pita Putaha. So 3 is 3, Sapta is 7. So 3 times 7 is 21. Pita Putaha. So the word Putaha is translated as purified. It is not Tri Saptabhi Pita Muktaha. So it says 21 generations of your forefathers will be purified, not liberated. So what does this mean? So Krishna does not interfere with the free will of anyone. If we are in the family of pure devotees, we are not automatically delivered. We are not automatically liberated. Each of us as a soul has to choose, has to want, has to desire Krishna. But the fact that we are in the if you are in the family of a pure devotee, everything, the circumstances become very easy for you to practice Krishna consciousness. The doors to liberation are open, but that doesn't mean that you are liberated. We still have to walk through that door. So, in this particular context, Bali Maharaj had to choose, even after taking darshan of Vamandev, he had the free will to choose between Vamandev or Shukracharya, who had given him everything that he had. And he chose Vamandev. And that is why he was considered one of the Mahajans. So that was about Bali Maharaj. Now let's look at some instances where the Lord appears as a beggar. The common theme here is that whatever we give to the Lord, we will never be a loser. Whenever we give something to the Lord, we will never be a loser. So let's look at some examples that I found from the Bhagavatam where the Lord takes the position of begging from his devotees. So the first example that I could think of was from the wives of the Brahmanas. So here we see Krishna, Balaram, the Gopas begging from the wives of the Brahmanas. It is said that one of the wives of the Brahmanas in Gaur Leela became Shuklambar Brahmachari. And in that instance also, after Lord Chaitanya came back from Gaya, he begged rice from Shuklambar Brahmachari. So we see a parallel here of the Lord begging in Krishna Lila and in Gaur Lila. So let's look at one more example, and this is a favorite example of mine. So the Lord begging from the fruit seller. I just want to go a little deep into this pastime. So the fruit seller was someone who was from Mathura. So she heard that Yashoda had given birth to this beautiful boy called Krishna, and she developed, just from hearing, an intense desire to take darshan of Krishna. So she decided and made up her mind that today I will go and not return until I have Krishna's darshan. She made a vow or do or die, and her object of life was fixed on Krishna. Of course, she was living in Mathura, so she had to go all the way to Gokul. So she made a makeshift boat, a temporary boat by which she could cross the Yamuna. She reached the other side, and then with the basket of fruits on her head, she started chanting, Phala lo, Phala lo. Phala means fruit. So she started saying, here are my fruits, here are my fruits, please come and take, please come and take. But in her meditation, she was constantly thinking of Krishna, of Govinda. So she started saying, instead of saying Falalo, she started saying Govindalo, Govindalo, take my Govinda, take my Govinda, take my Damodar, take my Madhava. So she started chanting Govinda, Damodara, Madhava. Instead of chanting the names of the fruits, she was chanting Govinda, Damodara, Madhava. So in that consciousness of chanting Govinda, Damodara, Madhava, she reached Nanda Bhavan, and just outside the courtyard of Nanda Bhavan, she sat down and she started calling out loudly, Govinda, Damodara, Madhava. But Krishna did not appear. Krishna did not appear. And she tried the next day. Again, Krishna did not appear, even though she was calling out, Govinda, Damodara, Madhava. On the third day, she decided that if Krishna does not appear today, she was going to give up her body. At that point, on the third day, Krishna, when she heard her calling Govinda, Damodara, Madhava, he jumped out of the lap of Mother Yashoda and started running towards this fruit seller. On the way towards the fruit seller, he took a few grains, and because he had seen that his parents would actually barter and get some items from sellers, so he took a few grains and he started running towards this fruit seller. Now, the fruit seller, when she saw Krishna, the beautiful sight of Krishna, her eyes were covered with tears. And she was completely transfixed on Krishna running towards her with a few grains in his palms. By the time Krishna reached her, all the grains in the palm of Krishna had fallen and his palm was empty. At that point, Krishna starts begging. Krishna starts saying, can you please give me some fruits? Can you please give me some fruits? Even though she wanted to give all her fruits, she wanted to prolong this a little bit more. And she said, no, I won't give you any fruits. I need something from you. Then Krishna said, what do you want? So at that point, she said, I may give you something if you call me mother and if you sit on my lap. So now we have to understand that she was from a low caste. She was from a low caste, and it was not considered appropriate for someone from a high caste to sit on the lap of a low caste. Of course, Krishna did not care about the caste system, but he acted in such a way that, oh, what will Mother Yashoda think if I sit on your lap? What will my friends think if I call you mother? And so on. But still, because she was begging, Krishna reciprocated and said, okay, I'll quickly sit on your lap for a moment. So Krishna sat on the fruit seller's lap for a moment, but that moment was like eternity for the fruit seller. She showered Krishna with tears, and not only externally with tears, but internally she showered Krishna with the devotion in her heart. And at that point, we know that Krishna filled the basket with jewels. Of course, she did not notice that at that point. After that, Krishna happily started, like any other child, would run away. He took the fruits, whatever he could carry in his hand, and he happily started running towards Mother Yashoda. And then he immediately gave all the fruits to Mother Yashoda in the veil of her sari. And typically, as mothers do, Mother Yashoda started distributing all of these fruits to all the gopis. But no matter how much she distributed, she always found that there were more fruits in the veil of her sari. So the supply was not at all finished, it was unlimited. So, in one sense, what was happening was Krishna took the prema bhakti of his dear devotee and distributed it indirectly through Mother Yashoda to everyone in Gokul. So then the question comes, what happened to the fruit seller? So the fruit seller, again carrying the basket, which was now feeling a little heavy, she walked all the way to the banks of the Yamuna and she laid the basket down. As soon as she laid the basket down, she saw that it was filled with jewels. And it said that the amount of jewels that were there were almost equal to Kamsa's treasury. But this was the final test that she had to pass. She immediately realized how wonderful is Krishna. I don't need any of these jewels. I've gotten what I wanted. I've gotten the darshan of Krishna, and I don't need this. And she immediately threw all the jewels into the Yamuna. And then she started dancing in ecstasy. Govinda, Damodara, Madhava, calling out Krishna's names. And then Krishna understood her strong desire to be his mother and immediately gave her a spiritual body and transferred her to Goloka, Vrindavan. And she gave up her material body on the banks of the Yamuna. So this is a very sweet pastime which talks about the Lord begging from his devotee and the wonderful reciprocation between the Lord and his devotee. Also, in Kali Yuga, the Lord appears as a beggar, as Lord Nityananda, for example. So here in the famous Nadia Godrume song, Prabhura Agnai Bhai Magi E Bhiksha, Bolo Krishna Bhajo Krishna, Karo Krishna Siksha. So Bhiksha means begging. So here he's saying, I'm here to beg three things from you. What are the three things? Chant Krishna, worship Krishna, and teach others about Krishna. This is all that Lord Nityananda is begging. And of course, this bhajan continues. Aparada shunya hoy loho Krishna nam. Krishna mata, Krishna pita, Krishna dana pran. Aparada shunya hoy loho Krishna nam. Without committing any offenses, chant the holy names of Krishna. This is what Lord Nityananda is begging. Why? Because Krishna mata, Krishna pita, Krishna dana pran. Krishna is your mother, Krishna is your father, Krishna is your life and soul. So chant Krishna, worship Krishna, and teach Krishna to others. So also a similar pastime occurs with Lord Chaitanya and the washerman. So this was during Lord Chaitanya's travels, where he comes across a washerman who thinks that Lord Chaitanya is a poor mendicant, and he says, don't come towards me, I have nothing to give you, I have nothing to give you. Then Lord Chaitanya says, I have just one thing to beg from you. And then the washerman says, okay, what is it? Lord Chaitanya says, say Hari Bol once. The washerman, with a lot of hesitation, he says Hari Bol once, and then without Lord Chaitanya having to tell him one more time, he says Hari Bol the second time, and then he starts dancing in ecstasy. And it is said that no one could stop him from that ecstasy. Whoever touched him also started dancing in ecstasy. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, and so on. So the Lords in Kali Yuga, Lord Nityananda, Lord Chaitanya, are begging us one thing: just chant Krishna, worship Krishna, and give Krishna to others. Also, Krishna is begging from each one of us to turn towards him, to give our thoughts, to give our actions, to give our talents to Krishna. And while doing so, should we ignore or neglect our material needs? And now we'll turn towards Srila Prabhupada's purport to answer that question. So in this purport, in this wonderful purport that we just read, Srila Prabhupada mentions the body fully engaged in Krishna's service should not be neglected as material. One who does neglect it is false in his renunciation. The purport is that the activities performed with the help of the body for the satisfaction of the absolute truth are never temporary. I'll repeat, the activities performed with the help of the body for the satisfaction of the absolute truth are never temporary, although performed by the temporary body. Indeed, such activities are everlasting. Therefore, the body should be properly cared for. So in this context, I've been reading about the devotee care manual that was released by ISKCON Vrindavan. They made a lot of progress in the last 6 months. And in their vision statement, this is what their vision statement reads. It says, to make everyone spiritually happy and materially well situated. So then this can be a subject of debate. Why materially well situated? So if you look at the Gajendra pastime, in one of the purports, Srila Prabhupada mentions that unless one is materially well situated, well grounded in their surroundings, they will lose the battle, which is what happened to Gajendra, because his surrounding was not comfortable for him. And that is why he started losing the battle. So I really like this vision statement, which says to make everyone spiritually happy and materially well situated. Now, there is always this doubt in a devotee's mind whether I should focus on living or whether I should focus on leaving. Now let's take a couple of examples. Vyasadeva himself, who compiled the Mahabharata, mentioned this amazing verse. Of course, we know the Bhagavad Gita is part of the Mahabharata. In this particular verse, Vyasadeva is saying, Dharmecha, Artecha, Kamecha, Mokshecha, Bharatarshaba, Yadi hasta tadanyatra, Yadi nahasti natat kachat. So what this is saying is, Dharma that is not here in the Mahabharata is nowhere else to be found. So if you read the Mahabharata, you will know how to live in one sense. That is what Vyasadeva is saying. The same Vyasadeva who compiled the Mahabharata is now in the Bhagavatam, in the beginning of the Bhagavatam is saying, Dharma projita kaitavatra paramo nirmatsaranam satam. He's saying, completely reject all dharma. So in the Mahabharata, it's about living. In the Bhagavatam, it's about leaving. Again, it's about the context. The context here is that the Bhagavatam was spoken to Parikshit Maharaj, who was leaving his body in 7 days. And the Mahabharata, especially the Bhagavad Gita, was spoken on the battlefield where the immediate need was to fight. So also, Krishna in the Gita encourages Arjuna to fight. The same Krishna in the Bhagavatam encourages Uddhava to renounce. So again, through scriptures, we can take either extreme and prove our point. But, so the question still remains, should we focus on our immediate responsibilities, on our Varnashram Dharma, or should we focus on the Bhagavad Dharma? Let's take one simple example. As soon as someone is born, if you start telling that person, just focus on leaving, just focus on leaving, just focus on leaving, then that person will not be able to function, will not have any motivation to function in this material world. On the other extreme, if you start telling someone, live, just focus on living, just focus on living, just focus on living, then that person gets completely engrossed in this material world. So what is the solution? So the solution is given in Chaitanya Charitamrita in the conversation between Lord Chaitanya and Raghunath Das Goswami, where Lord Chaitanya says, Markata Vairagya na kara loka dekhena. So what he's saying here is, Markata Vairagya is monkey renunciation. He's saying, you should not make yourself a show bottle devotee and become a false renunciant. For the time being, enjoy the material world in a befitting way and do not become attached to it. So when we are giving Krishna to others, and even in our own lives, we must be very deep rooted. We must first give them the roots and then give the wings. Because even if we fall, we are firmly grounded. So that is why this balance, this harmonizing between material and spiritual needs must take place. So let's take some examples of Chaitanya Charitamrita, where Lord Chaitanya himself cared for his devotees. The example that comes to my mind is how Lord Chaitanya took care of Vasudeva Datta's material needs. He told Shivananda Sen, who was a finance expert, to take care of Vasudeva Datta. And this is the quote from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela 1595, where he says, being a householder, Vasudeva Datta needs to save some money. Because he's not doing so, it is very difficult for him to maintain his family. He also says, please take care of Vasudeva Datta's family affairs, become his manager, and make the proper adjustments. So this is Lord Chaitanya himself telling Shivananda Sen to take care of Vasudeva Datta's material needs. Also, yesterday Sundarnath Prabhu spoke about this pastime where Lord Chaitanya tells Sanatan Goswami, who was about to commit suicide, and he says, you have already dedicated your life and body to my service. Therefore, your body does not belong to you, nor do you have any right to commit suicide. I have to execute many devotional services through your body. So also His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj, on this point of caring for devotees, he mentioned, and this is a very nice quote that I'll always remember, and it's very close to my heart. I want to share this with you. So Maharaj said, and this was given to leaders who were involved in devotee care. He said, what would it take for each and every particular devotee to feel protected, inspired, and encouraged to remain active in the mission of Srila Prabhupada till the last day of their lives? So, whatever it takes to make one feel protected, whatever it takes to make one feel inspired, whatever it takes to make one feel encouraged in this path, so that they remain active in the mission of Srila Prabhupada till the last day of their lives. So, this gives someone the satisfaction that they're protected. It gives someone the freedom to express themselves, gives someone some self worth, and also it gives a spiritual direction so that they can remain active in Prabhupada's mission till the last day of their lives. There are a couple of other verses from Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu that I'll share and end the talk. So this one is from Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu 12108, where Srila Rupa Goswami is saying, the bare necessities of life must be accepted, but one should not superfluously increase his necessities, nor should they be unnecessarily decreased. I'll repeat, the bare necessities of life should be accepted, but one should not superfluously increase his necessities, nor should they unnecessarily be decreased. One should simply accept what is necessary to help one advance spiritually. Also in Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, and this is how Srila Prabhupada starts this particular purport. So I'll end with this particular example. One who is not attached to anything, but at the same time accepts everything in relation to Krishna, one is rightly situated above possessiveness. On the other hand, one who rejects everything without knowledge of its relationship to Krishna is not as complete in his renunciation. Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu 1 to 255, 256. So, what is this self realization and how do we balance the two? So, in the third chapter of Bhagavatam, verse 33, it is said, whenever a person experiences by self realization that both the gross and subtle bodies have nothing to do with the pure self, at that time he sees himself as well as the Lord. So, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada mentions this very nice sentence. Self realization means becoming indifferent to the needs of the gross and subtle bodies and becoming serious about the activities of the self. In our beginning days, we are actually serious about the needs of the gross and material bodies and indifferent about the activities of the self. So, just inverting that begins our path towards self realization. So, I'll stop here. And if anybody has any questions, comments, please. Adi Purush Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Gaur Kumar Prabhu. Yeshadulal.
Hare Krishna, Yeshadulal Prabhu.
Dandavad. Such a nice class. I always find your explanations nourishing. So, I really enjoyed the fruit seller description. That's one of my favorite pastimes. Um, but I had a question about something, you just said, one becomes indifferent to the needs, the gross and the subtle bodies. Prabhupada says, um, I mean, I can understand where you come to the point of realization that, okay, I'm not this gross body, I'm not this subtle body. But surely there are needs like, I'm hungry or I'm in pain and I need to take some medication or get a massage, or, I'm diseased and I need to do something, for the body. So how does one balance that? Because becoming indifferent means, ignoring it. But, maybe a self-realized soul does that. And I'm far from self-realization, but that seems a little contradictory to me.
Yes, so thank you for bringing this up, Yeshadulal Prabhu. And I just want to mention here that in that particular purport, Srila Prabhupada says also that indifferent does not mean neglecting one's needs of the material body. So let's take one example. Supposing we start neglecting the need to breathe. I cover my nose, I cover my mouth, then and completely focus on breathing. Is that even possible? we can't neglect the needs of our body. Of course, we have to be slowly become indifferent to the needs, but we can't neglect the needs. So if we have certain needs, we have to address them and we have to take care of them. So that's my answer. If anybody else has any thoughts? Yes, Adipurush Prabhu.
Yeah, if we have no service, if we have no prescribed duty, then there's no possibility of having a criteria for whether this is a need or not. You know, of course, Krishna says to Arjuna, abandon all desire for gain or safety. But for the sake of serving Krishna, he's protecting himself with armor and weapons. So if we have a service, Rupa Goswami says, accept what is favorable for your service, reject what is unfavorable. If we have no prescribed duty, if we have no relationship with the guru, where we say, what do you want me to do? And he's given you a prescribed duty, then there's no way you can figure out what's favorable or unfavorable, what's necessary and what's unnecessary. Without guru, without prescribed duty, you're just operating in amorphous, because material life is hopeless, pointless, meaningless, useless. But for the sake of serving Krishna, we take a certain amount of rest. We take a certain, not too much, not too little, not too, and we want to go as close as we can to the edge. The last few days I've been falling asleep in class, and tremendous all-night service is a little difficult to maintain that. But we also want to stay awake in class. So we are doing, the intention behind it is what's important. I'm eating so I can serve Krishna. I'm sleeping so I can serve Krishna. I'm maintaining my health so I can serve Krishna. But in and of itself, those things are just, a path to death. And ultimately, it doesn't make any sense, right? I hope that. Look at Shukadev Goswami. He jumps out of the womb after 16 years. His father says, my son, Srila Vyasadeva is king. And he doesn't even answer his father, right? What, just don't start that. I'm this body, you're that body, I'm this, you're that. So there are examples of tremendous renunciation, but ultimately we're dedicated, not renounced. We do what we do so that we can serve Krishna. Of course, you said all of this already.
Thank you, Adipurush Prabhu. I just want to mention one more thing. Yeah. His Holiness Giriraj Swami Maharaj says that there are two opulences in the life of a devotee, especially now in Kali Yuga. The first opulence, he says, is getting natural products, like organic products and so on. And as Kali Yuga progresses, it's going to be more and more difficult to get even organic air, organic water, and so on. And the second opulence he mentions is sweet, loving exchanges amongst devotees, where devotees are caring for one another, taking care of each other, and so on. And in this context, Giriraj Swami explains that Srila Prabhupada, being a pure devotee, single-handedly started the movement, but we as his disciples and grand disciples can continue this movement just based on the 6 loving exchanges between devotees. Thank you so much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Shri Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Darshan is going to open any minute now. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Just 2 or 3 minutes. Just to add,
Yes,
you want to add, anybody else would like to add, they can go ahead and do so.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Yeah. Just...
I thought you were going to spare me today.
Yeah, I got a little distracted, so I missed a couple of things. One was, when the fruit seller was calling out, it was a strange thing to me. She was calling out Govinda, like she was selling Govinda, selling, that part I'm talking about?
Yes.
So I didn't get that. Why was she calling out his name as if to say she was selling him instead of selling fruit. Yes, instead of
Yes.
selling fruit.
So typically what happens is when you're selling fruits, you call out the fruits names. I'm selling bananas, I'm selling mangoes, and so on. But because she heard so much about Krishna and her mind was completely thinking of Krishna the whole time, automatically her words were filled with Govinda, Damodara, Madhava. That is the understanding.
Yeah.
And it's also explained that this became like a Sankirtan, she was chanting, doing Harinam Sankirtan on the streets, chanting Govinda, Damodara, Madhava.
Yeah, and one other thing, thank you so much. And one other thing I missed was you asked the audience who was the person who fell into both these categories. So what were the two categories? I know one of them was Prahlad, and the other one was, I forget.
Yeah, so it was Prahlad, Bali Maharaj, and Sukadev Goswami. These are the three who fall into both categories, Mahajans and exemplars.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Gail.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Gaur Kumar, for an observation. I really appreciated the fruit color passing work. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.